Welcome back. This is the second lesson recording for IM1, December 1st, 2020. So now we're trying to find the slope from given 2 points. So we're given this 60, 135 and 30, 75. Now let's think about how did we used to do this? How did we find the slope? Well, to find the slope, we used to draw the slope triangle. So let's just pretend to draw the slope triangle. That would go like this. Okay, that would be my slope triangle. And we figured out what the rise was. And we put that over the run. Okay. And we said the slope was always the rise over run. But what is rise? Rise is really how much is the y value is changing, isn't it? So we instead of writing y rise, we can write change in the y value. Okay, and the run is how much is the x value changing. It's going from 30 to 60 here. So we call that change in x. So rise is another name for change in y. Run is another name for change in x. So slope is going to be rise over run. Instead of rise over run, we're going to write change in y over change in x. Okay, and to figure out how much is changed, we can use these points because we know that the first point on the coordinate is always the x value and the second point is always the y value. Again, the first point on the coordinate is always the x value, second point is the y value. So that means to figure out how much the y is changing, you're looking at 75 and 135. Okay, so this point went from here to there. So we're going to get the final point, which is 135. And change means we need to subtract. This has to be there. This has to be minus sign. And then depending on the y value of the first point, it's going to be positive or negative here. So, and it's just going to be 75. So we're subtracting 135 minus 75. And for the change in x, it's the 60 minus 30. You do need to be very consistent in figuring out which one you're going to be taking off from. So we're going from this point to this point. So you are starting with this point coordinates and then subtracting the coordinate from this point. Okay, so it's going to be 135 minus 75 and 60 minus 30. You can't do 135 minus 75 for the numerator and then 30 minus 60 for the denominator. You'll get the opposite sign here. Okay, so in this case, what do I have? 135 minus 75 is really 60. And 60 minus 30 is 30. Okay, so then 60 divided by 30 is just 2. And we got that as well. And that's what we figured out, that the unit rate or rate of change was $2 per day, right? So, and we figured out that slope is also 2 as well. So interpreting this 2 that we figure out, 2 is the unit rate. That means how much the y is changing. So how much is the balance changing every time the x value, the day is changing. So that means how much is the balance changing? It's increasing by $2 each day. So that's what we just figured out. Okay, now this time let's use the 2 points to find the y-intercept. Okay, so we figured out what the slope is, and that's the first thing you should do is always figure out the slope. So we figured out from the previous slide that m is 2. Okay, now to, what do we know so far? Of the y is equal to mx plus b. We figured out what the slope is. So now we can write the partially completed equation. So instead we have instead of m, we can write 2 here because we figure out the slope to be 2x plus, but we still do not know what b is. So I am just going to write plus b here because that's a variable that we still do not know. Okay, now we know that both these points go through this whatever line equation of the line that we are finding. So that means I can substitute either one of the point. I can choose this point. So this is going to be my x value and this is going to be my y value. Or I can choose this point, but you do need to choose one point. You can't choose x from one point and y from another point. You need to be consistent because otherwise you're going to be using a wrong point. So x, for every time I see an x in the equation, I am going to substitute 30. So it's going to be 2 times 30. And every time I see a y, I am going to use 75 as my value. So 75 is equal to 2 times 30 plus b. We do not know what b is yet, so I am just going to write b as a variable here. Then let's start simplifying. 2 times 30 is 60 plus b is equal to 75. Okay, now this is a one-step equation. 60 plus b is 75. So how do I deal with this? I need to get rid of this 60. How do I get rid of this plus 60? This is being added to b. So I need to undo adding 60. So that's going to be subtracting 60 from both sides. And 60 minus 60, it becomes 0. So it disappears. It goes away. So on the right-hand side of the equal sign, you are just left with b on the right-hand side. 75 minus 60 is $15. Okay. So then we just figured out the equation to be b to be 15. That means we can put the equation. This was the partially completed equation. Now we have the complete equation because we figured out what b is. Y is equal to 2x plus b is 15. So this is my equation. And notice that we got the same answer. Remember when we used the logic and figured out how much the piggy bank started off with when she started saving, it was $15, and that's what the $15 we just figured out. Okay, and graphically, if I was to draw a line, it will be like this will be the y-intercept. That's the starting line. So it will look something like this. Okay. Now it's your chance to practice what we just learned. In fact, we learned this few lessons ago. That was a review, um, but you're going to do it with your group. Okay, so I am going to put you into your breakout room group, and just a quick reminder: when you're in your groups, the video and audio must be on the whole time. Okay, not so that you can freely talk to each other. And that is the purpose of breakout room. It's not just so that you can just work independently. I would like you to discuss each card before moving on to the next card. And feel free to share your screen with your group so that you can discuss fully. Okay, so the video link chat is in the chat. So please join and start with the Desmos activity. I am not going to go through it because it is actually quite self-explanatory because it actually will reveal the answers, correct answers, as well as help you work through the problems as well. So please do the Desmos activities yourself, as well as this Desmos activity will be graded as part of your participation today. Okay, we had a quick brain break intermission where you got to watch this quick video on mystery of the monolith in Utah that was discovered like 2 weeks ago, but then it actually disappeared. It disappeared like a week ago. So I just wanted to you to share, what's your theory on what happened? Okay, just a fun brain break there. I am not going to show the video, so if you would like, you can go to the slides to watch the video. And finally, you spent the rest of the time working on the Desmos activity. You had two options, okay, depending on how confident you were with multiplying polynomials. If you were very confident, then you would do part two of the Desmos and you would join this link that I will be putting out. If you are not very confident, then you will be doing this link here. Okay, and the basis for deciding whether you are confident or not, you can certainly look at your quiz number 5, and I actually did that for you and figured out how many questions you got wrong for the multiplying polynomials, and I am going to be making a suggestion as to whether you should be doing part 1 first or part 2 first. Okay, and that was the rest of the class. And again, I am not going to go through the Desmos activity because it will help you work through the problems as well as reveal the correct answers so that you can figure out what you're doing wrong. Okay, so as a closure, what did we do today? We solved application problems where we found the slope and equations given 2 points. And we also did some multiplying polynomial practice. So I hope by now that you feel a lot more comfortable with finding the slope and the equation given 2 points, and that you also feel confident in multiplying polynomial practice in preparation for the unit test next week. Thank you for listening.